body and the mind are so interconnected that if you don't get your health in order, you will never unleash your full potential. To that end, with this show, I'm bringing on the world's most important thinkers on a wide variety of health-related topics so you can learn how to maximize your potential. Today's guest is the best-selling author of Sleep Smarter, host of the Model Health Show, one of the most popular and longest-running podcasts on health and fitness, and he's one of the top nutrition experts in the country. Additionally, he's the founder of Advanced Integrative Health Alliance, a functional medicine clinic, as well as someone who's been featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, Men's Health Magazine, and countless other major media outlets, including ESPN. He's also a frequent keynote speaker for numerous organizations, universities, and conferences. So please, help me in welcoming the man who cured his own incurable degenerative spine disease, Shawn Stephenson. Shawn, thank you for being here, man.
Very grateful.
So I'm super stoked to have you. We've flipped before where I had a chance to be on the other side of you asking me questions, which was a lot of fun. Yeah. And now diving into your world. And I think virtually anybody starting an interview with you would start with the sleep stuff. But I want to flip it, and I want to talk about sprinting. We're coming around the corner, we hit that final stretch, and your hip breaks.
Yeah.
What happened, and then what were the knock-on effects?
Wow. Make sure that this is incredibly important. At track practice, I'm coming around the curve onto the straightaway, and I broke my hip. And there was no trauma involved. Nobody hit me. I didn't fall. It just broke because, cut to a few years later, I finally get diagnosed with this degenerative bone disease. And at the time, being 16 years old, you have the hormones of like a Greek god, so, you get the kind of standard of care, take these NSAIDs, stay off the leg, you'll get better. And I did, but nobody stopped to ask the question, how can a young man break his hip just from running? And once I finally got this diagnosis, it felt good to know what the issue was, but also it kind of sent my world into a tailspin.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that it broke. It's really crazy that they didn't ask why it happened. Exactly, but the thing that I find most interesting in the story is that you decide to ask the question, what are my vertebrae made of?
Yeah.
And taking that ownership, which you must have been like your late teens at that point.
Yeah, so this was 20 years old when I finally get the diagnosis. And I'm in college at the time. And, I went from like a chronic kind of nuisance of a pain to chronic debilitating pain over the course of a few weeks. And this is important and I always like to share this whenever I can. My very first physician, he put my MRI up for me to see, and he told me that I had the spine of an 80-year-old man. I had 2 ruptured discs, and my vertebrae were deteriorating. And so when he says this to me, I'm immediately like, okay, so what do we do? Like, let's fix it, And he's like, I'm sorry, son, there's nothing you can do about this. And what happened, and I know you've heard about this several times, the placebo effect is something where you get a positive injunction from somebody who's an authority figure, and you proceed to have certain symptoms happen or changes in your physiology. And a lot of people don't realize this, but placebos are actually 33% effective. That's the power of the mind. But what he did for me was something called a nocebo effect. This is giving somebody a negative injunction that something bad is going to happen, and your physiology begins to change from that. And so I spent the next 2.5 years in a lot of pain, a lot of drugs, prescribed and over the counter, and just laying on my floor, because not only was this painful, but it was embarrassing. I went from kind of being one of the cool guys to like, I'm walking around campus with a back brace and just, really kind of losing myself. I saw different doctors. I, went through the whole gamut of why me? Why did this happen to me? Why won't somebody help me? And really playing this victim role. And it wasn't until I actually decided to get well that everything changed. And most people never do that with their bodies, with their health, with their relationships. It's mostly like, I'll see what'll happen, wishful thinking, I'll give this a try. But when you really decide something, you're cutting away the possibility of anything else but that thing. And I'm a big student of lexicon, and the word decision is from the Latin de, meaning from, and caedere, which means to cut. So when you make a real decision about something, you cut away the possibility of anything else but that thing. And so I decided, no matter what, I'm going to get well. And that sent me, and it wasn't like, the clouds parted and like the sun shined and everything was okay. I'm a very analytical person as well. And so I put a plan together. I decided, and now it's time to do something. Number one, put a plan together, and that plan entailed 3 specific things. I changed the way I was eating, which giving my body the actual raw materials that it needed to regenerate me was important. And I was on what I called the tough diet at the time, which is typical university food. So I'm no joke, I'm eating pizza daily. My vitamin C is coming like from Sunny D. And so it's no wonder I was made out of terrible stuff, you know? And so I asked this really important question, which you mentioned, okay, if my spine is deteriorating, if my bones are deteriorating, what is it actually made of? And that set me down this incredible path of discovery, because what we hear in kind of common culture is, you know, if you want strong, healthy bones, drink milk. And come to find out, calcium is one of the least important things. And even getting it from your diet, it doesn't exactly work in your body the way that we're marketed to because it's marketing. And so I found out that things like silica, magnesium, sulfur-bearing amino acids, all these things are in some cases even more important. So I start to get all those nutrients in my body through food, primarily once I really got it, like food is gonna.
And was that, so how did you get that? Because that's where it's becoming a lot more popular now, but when you would have been going through this, people didn't really think like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is around the time I was thinking if I was eating licorice and it was fine because it was fat-free, right? And somebody said, well, I think if you eat too much sugar, it turns into fat. And like that didn't even make sense to me. I was like, how would that be possible?
Yeah, especially I'm from the Midwest. And so like there was like a wild oats market. Whole Foods just opened. And so I think it's really important, the environment. You know, when I had some friends, they would take me to the stores, and then, you know, that gradually got me into like, not just the supplement aisle. And so I just began to flood my body with all these important nutrients and also hydration. Your disc in between the vertebrae and your spine. And you would think like, if I want these to be more hydrated, I need to drink more water, but it doesn't work like that. Your disc get hydrated through a process called remote diffusion. And so literally it's like the last place in your body that gets nutrients and hydration. And so you needed to really super hydrate yourself. Make sure your body has an abundance, like an overflow of nutrients to make sure they get to the right place. So that was number one, was nutrition. Number two was movement. And so exercise is really about two main things. Number one is assimilation. And I came across some research that showed that when you actually are doing walking while taking on specific supplements for your bone density goes even higher, all right? Because that walking helps your body to assimilate. Number two is elimination, you know, elimination of toxins. Because your lymphatic system, which, especially when you're getting healthier, your body is trading out a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of dead cells, there's a lot of metabolic waste products. And so how do you get that stuff out of your system? You have to move, because your lymphatic system doesn't have a pump like your cardiovascular system does. And you actually have 4 times more lymph than you do blood. And so that movement was so important in healing. And here's the problem, is that oftentimes when you have, you know, an injury or an issue like this, we're told not to do anything. That's often the worst thing you can do, because things will start to atrophy. If you don't use it, you lose it. And so I just started to, and it's, of course, if anybody's dealing with like an acute problem right now, like take a day or two off, but I encourage people to do what you can in an intelligent way.